Superpowers for good, shaping the fate. Investors and dreamers open the gate. Supercross stands loud, proud and true, building tomorrow for me and you.
Welcome, everyone. I am so excited. I just have a wonderful guest today. It's Lindsey Williams, who is the founder and CEO of Urban Wine Company. You don't want to miss this. This is going to be such a fun conversation. Stick around. Lindsey, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Devin.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. We're excited to learn more. I understand you've got a WeFunder campaign that's live now, but let's hold off on that for a minute. Let's talk first about your business. Let's make sure we understand. Tell us about Urban Wine Company.
Yeah, so the Urban Wine Company, we're not just your ordinary winery. We are making wine by importing grapes here in the South and making our wines here locally. So that's something that's really, really different. We're using all sorts of scientific new age methods for fermentation. And we're also spreading diversity wherever we go. So we're really all about introducing our wines to a more diverse community and making the wine world more approachable for everybody.
That's brilliant. I think it's so important to find ways to connect diverse communities to new things, and so I appreciate you doing that. So tell us a little bit about where the grapes come from and these new technologies you're using for fermentation. That sounds very interesting.
Yeah. So, originally I thought I wanted to buy a vineyard and very quickly realized that I'm not a farmer and growing grapes down here in the South was really, really difficult. And so I began to research ways to bring a winery concept here to the Carolinas. And that's how I discovered the urban wine method. So we are importing our grapes from all over. We have a fair amount of grapes from California and Oregon and places in the US you would typically find some of the best wines. But we also are importing grapes from overseas, and we're working on having our first ever North Carolina grown wine. So it's a really fun process. The wines come to us the grapes come to us flash frozen. And then we're taking the grapes from there through the fermentation process at our winemaking facility here in the Lake Norman area. And I've got a team that ferments the grapes. We rack the wines the traditional method. We're filtering all the wines, bottling and labeling everything right here in the Carolinas. So it's a really fun process, and it enables us to really put our own terroir on the wines here in Carolina.
You have a fascinating background. You got a JD. So at one point, you probably called yourself a lawyer, even if you don't do that anymore. You worked at JP Morgan, did hundreds of millions of dollars in transactions. How did you make the transition from that career to sommelier, wine producer person? That's a big switch.
Sure. Well, I was working in banking and drinking a lot of wine, and I used my work trips as an opportunity to travel all over the country and the world, visiting various vineyards. So it was really on a trip to Italy that I got to see the winemaking process up close. We stayed in Tuscany at a winemaking villa. And I really fell in love with the behind the scenes process of the winemaking. And so that's when it really sparked my interest in learning more. So I enrolled in a winemaking course and took about a year learning all the processes behind the wine, studying for the sommelier exam. And then I went on to do a 1-week apprenticeship at a winery in California. And that's how the Urban Wine Co. was born.
That is fascinating. And how are things going? Give us a sense of the stage of development. I don't think we're quite at global distribution scale yet. Maybe we're headed there. Tell us where we are.
Sure. So, we originally started as a very small tasting room here in Davidson, North Carolina, and really we're just selling our wines there. And it became very quickly apparent that folks outside of the Davidson area were really loving our wines and wanting to get them. So we started shipping wines. We have a wine club. And then we were approached by Target And we're recently awarded a 44-store deal with Target Retail. So that has really caused us to shift our gears. And so the reason why we are raising money for the Urban Wine Co. is because we are looking to distribute our wines more widely, take on additional large retail partnerships, and really grow our wholesale business. And in order to do that, we need to scale and scale quickly. So getting a new facility, a much larger winemaking facility, adding some technology and some different marketing aspects that we need on the back end in order to sell wholesale through our website. And then people, we definitely need to grow the team and really add some strategic hires, particularly in the sales department. And with all of those items, we will really be able to scale our business and get our wines to more people outside of Davidson, North Carolina.
Lindsey, I'm so excited about what you're building, but help us get a sense, just a little sense of scale about what your ambition is. Are you building a $1 million business, a $5 million business, $1 billion business? What's the goal? Tell us a little bit about your ambition here with this business.
Yeah. Our goal is really to make this a $5 million business. We see ourselves growing to be a huge player in the Southeast region and beyond. Initially, we're going to target that Southeast region and stay somewhat local. But we really see that with our retail prospects, we can grow this business to be distributed throughout the country.
Wow. There's just kind of a tremendous potential. How big is the wine industry?
Well, the wine industry. Yeah, it's a huge
ahead.
industry. It's a $72 billion industry. And so there are a lot of players in this space, but we really feel like we set ourselves apart because we are making these wines here in the Carolinas, and there's not too many folks doing that.
Yeah. So if you were generating tens of millions in revenue, you'd be a tiny player still.
Sure. That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Very exciting. Yeah. That's cool. So, Lindsey, you've got this tremendous leadership ability, and you've done some just amazing, exciting things. How would you coach other entrepreneurs who are thinking about doing the kinds of things that you're doing? How would you advise them in thinking about starting a business, running a new business, changing gears? That's big stuff that you're doing.
It is. And I think that I've been able to pull on what I've learned throughout my career. So I'm fortunate to have had an investment banking career. And so a lot of those skills, both in investment banking and the law world, are transferable. But I always tell folks who want to get into entrepreneurship to learn as much as you can. It's like boiling the ocean some days, because you're responsible for accounting, marketing, finance, HR. Like, you're the person who, even if you're not completing all those tasks, and the goal is that not everything falls on your shoulders, you still have to be responsible for it and understand it. And so learning as much as you can. There's a lot of great podcasts, books, and all the resources out there these days, but and never stop learning. I think that's something that even after 6 years at this, I'm still learning new things every day.
It's really kind of a scary thing for a lot of people to step out on their own, especially when you're leaving an organization like Wells Fargo or JP Morgan to make the leap to go work for yourself. How did you make that transition? That's scary. I mean, I've done it, and I can tell people it can be kind of a scary thing. How did you pull it off?
Yeah, it was scary. And for me, I was in a position in my career where I had a whole team of people doing things for me. And so I not only was stepping out on my own in a new business, but I also was in a position where I didn't have an assistant, right? I didn't have analysts below me. I didn't have folks to help me with all of my daily activities until we hired and staffed up and got a team. But it was a transition. And honestly, it resulted in me learning a lot and doing a lot. But it was always so fulfilling to me because it was something I was doing for myself and for my business. And so I really enjoyed it. We also had the unfortunate circumstance of opening right before the pandemic. So I feel like, the transition from going from corporate America to owning a business on my own and then having to survive the pandemic really has made me stronger as an entrepreneur.
Well, that is such a great lesson. And I appreciate you sharing that, because I think there's so many people who, I mean, who hasn't at one time or another said, I got an idea to do this or that. Most of us do. And we rarely do them, right? Because we're afraid of the change that it would require. I really admire you for taking that on. Well, listen, we're going to take a quick pause here, but folks, I'm here with Lindsey Williams. She's the founder and CEO of Urban Wine Company, and we've been talking to her about her business. She's raising capital on WeFunder, but we're going to shift gears and we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Lindsey about her superpower. So stick around. You don't want to miss this.
You can get in on the ground floor to help fix the climate crisis for as little as $100. Pause now to scan the QR code to get started or visit s4g.biz/raisegreen. You can beat a green at Raise Green.
Want to learn from the world's great change makers? Find your superpower. Subscribe to the Superpowers for Good newsletter at superpowersforgood.com. Make your strengths into superpowers that will change the world. Join the super crowd today. Superpowers4good.com.
Hope to raise money from the impact crowd. Good investors are as interested in community, social or environmental impact as you. Connect with Funding Hope, an SEC-registered FINRA member crowdfunding portal to learn how to raise capital from the impact crowd. Scan the QR code now.
Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm here with Lindsey Williams. She's the founder and CEO of the Urban Wine Company. We're having just a great conversation. We've talked to her about her business, her WeFunder campaign. We're going to shift gears now to talk to her about her superpower, so stick around. Lindsey, you have done some amazing things, right? I used to be an investment banker myself, and I'm very impressed. I had my own little firm, but to get a job at JP Morgan, big deal, big deal, right? I really admire you, recognize the extraordinary human being that you are, the professional you are. What is your superpower?
I'm really good at figuring things out. And so that's something that has served me well, both in my past corporate life and then also in running a business. I think that, being a good problem solver will take you far because there's only so much information you can actually know. And as we talked about earlier, sometimes being an entrepreneur is like boiling the ocean just because there's so much that you're responsible for and, have to do every day. But being a problem solver has helped me navigate through, the legal and regulatory framework of owning an alcohol business, being now an HR manager and hiring and firing folks, and then also just dealing with kind of the everyday things that come up with owning a business. So that's something that I feel like I bring to the table, and it's something that served me well in entrepreneurship.
I get that. That is such a profoundly important thing, just being able to figure stuff out, solve problems. And can you think of a specific example, the time when you solved a problem that really mattered to share with us?
Sure. I mean, one of the big ones, and this is something that came up during COVID, is we had been open in our tasting room for about 4 months before COVID hit. So we were still a fairly new business, still trying to figure things out and find our way. And COVID hits. And North Carolina issues an ordinance that we can no longer be open in our tasting room. So for a business like ours that was exclusively selling wine out of our tasting room, that was big trouble. And not knowing how long the COVID shutdown was going to last and all the uncertainty around that, I had to very quickly try to figure out how are we going to sell this wine without being able to serve it in the tasting room. And so something that was kind of on my vision board and in my plans for the future was being able to set up our store online and sell wine. And that is a process because, as you can imagine, our laws, especially in North Carolina, do not allow you to just sell your wine online. There's an entire licensing, regulatory, and compliance process that goes along with that. But we were able to navigate that process find a vendor that helped us get set up and get all of the, all of the age gate. And so all the age restrictions that have to go on your website and all of the type of technical compliance needed to sell alcohol in order to be able to very quickly pivot from selling our wine in our tasting room to then selling it online.
Yeah, that's a big challenge to overcome. I can't imagine. I imagine there were a lot of entrepreneurs across the country facing similar challenges. Not everybody made it through that experience. So it says a lot about you that you were able to pull that off, especially as a young, sort of nascent company. So kudos to you.
Yeah, thank you.
As you think about problem solving, I wonder, you're a big deal. You've done a lot. You manage a lot of people. I imagine informally or maybe even formally, you've thought about the process of problem solving so that you can coach and encourage people to be more like you in that regard, right? How would you coach us today to be better problem solvers, to figure stuff out?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, my first step in problem solving is just like I said earlier, is learning about the problem. So if you've got a marketing problem, that means that today you get to be a marketing expert. If you've got a online sales issue, that means that you've got to learn all about online sales. If you're trying to figure out regulatory compliance, that means you get to be a regulatory compliance expert. So I do think the first step is always that education period. And, in today's world, we've got so many resources for educating ourselves on various things. But then I'm a big person who likes to still write things down. Everybody who works with me knows that I have a handwritten calendar and I still make lists, and I really enjoy vision boarding and whiteboarding and mapping things out. And I think that just goes back to having, worked at a corporation in the early 2000s. But, it's something that I feel like really getting all of your ideas out on paper or whatever medium you use, just so that you can see, okay, here are all the ways that I can attack this problem. Here are all of the resources that I need to attack this problem. Here are all the people I need to attack this problem, and really just mapping out all the possibilities. And then once you've got, everything dumped on a page or on a whiteboard, then you can start to say, okay, here's how we're going to form a solution to this problem. So that's kind of my method for most things. And again, like I said, I feel like writing things down and making lists and, mapping things together, for me, that's how my brain works best. And so that's how I really think about solving problems.
I think that's really, really helpful. So as you're thinking about, I want to just dig into this a little bit. As you think about the writing stuff down, how do you organize that from, I imagine when I think about problems, a problem almost by definition is difficult to define. It may be the symptom may be easy to define, but the root problem may be hard to define. How do you sort that out and organize your thoughts, define the problem so that it can be solved?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, just writing it all out. Like right here at my desk, I've got tons of sticky notes. Sticky notes are kind of my go-to for how I start the process, because then it's like I can really sit down and just write a sticky note for every thought that I have, thinking about how do I solve something, and really trying to figure out, okay, what needs to be the main objective. And I think for entrepreneurs, one of the things that's so hard is that you've got a lot of problems, right? At all times. It doesn't matter, how great of an entrepreneur you are, there's always going to be multiple issues happening at the same time. And so not only prioritizing those issues, but trying to figure out, okay, what are the things that I can control and how do I control them? So prioritizing those issues and really boiling it down to, like, what are the top 3 things that I need to attack and how do I attack them?
Yeah, that's just brilliant. I love that. Well, Lindsey, as we approach the end of our conversation, I want to circle back and ask you to take a minute, because, you're kind of a rock star entrepreneur, and people are going to want to connect with you and follow you on, they want your Instagram. And so would you take a minute and tell people how they can, what's the appropriate way, if there is one, to connect, how to follow you on social media, how to order some products,
Yeah,
if that's
absolutely.
something you're allowed to talk about, and then
I am.
and then remind us how to find your WeFunder campaign as well. It's a lot to cover, but take a minute or two and walk us through that.
Sure. Well, so I'm really active on LinkedIn and the Urban Wine Co. social media accounts. You would be surprised to find out that I still run those accounts most of the time. So when you send a message to the Urban Wine Co., typically I see it. I do have other folks who are in there every now and then, but they make sure that I get those. So those are the two best ways to reach me personally. And then also on our LinkedIn accounts and our Instagram and Facebook accounts, you can catch all of the going ons at the Urban Wine Co. We've always got a lot of specials going on. We're known for our fun events. And so all of those items you can catch there. And then also at our website, www.theurbanwineco.com. We are in the process of revamping and making that even better, but that's where you can go and see all of our events and our wines that are currently in stock. And so that'll link you directly out to our website where you can purchase wine and have it shipped to you directly. We ship to over 40 states. So, there's a good chance that we can ship our wines to you. We're also raising money currently on WeFunder. And so if you go to the link for our WeFunder page, which I think will be included here somewhere, there's all the information about the campaign, some information about us and where we plan to take the company and how you can get involved.
Yeah, I think that WeFunder link is wefunder.com/Urban Wine LLC. Does that sound right?
That sounds correct.
Okay. Well, listen, we are so grateful, Lindsey, for you taking the time to be with us today. What a great conversation. I really appreciate you helping us think through problem solving. As an entrepreneur myself, I have problems. I'm always trying to figure out how to solve them. So I really appreciate your insights. I'm going to get out some blank sheets of paper and start over on a couple of things right away.
Yep,
So
write it down.
I really appreciate that. And of course, I'm hoping that a lot of our folks will follow up and visit your WeFunder page to learn more about what you're doing there. Would love to see you succeed with your capital raise and grow a successful business.
Devin, thanks so much for having me. This has been great.
Well, we are grateful that you would take the time to be with us today. And again, we do wish you every success.
Thanks so much.
All righty. Now let's do some good.